Okay, welcome back. So we've completed the testing. All of our units passed. Now I'm just going to take some time and go over some of the problems that you may come across during the testing. So we'll start off with the portable suction. As discussed during the testing, one of the most, there's two common problems that you're going to come across. One is the canister is cracked or damaged. If the unit is leaking, it will not pass. The other one is if the battery is not sufficiently charged. You will get a false reading and you'll get a fail. Make sure the battery is fully charged, or have it plugged in while you're doing the testing, or change the battery prior to testing and make sure the canister is in good shape. If you do that, most times the unit will pass. If it does fail, fill out the particular paperwork, make sure it's handed into ZZG Logistics, and put another unit on the truck. Okay, so this is the portable suction. On the onboard suction, you're kind of limited on the onboard suction. If it was to fail, it's probably a couple different causes. It's probably a leak. You may also have an issue with the actual suction pump, which is located on the truck, and the vehicle will have to be out of service. That's very rare. Most of the problems are going to be indicated based upon this regulator either being faulty or not pressed into the coupling correctly. Make sure prior to testing, or if you've gotten a bad result, or if it's not adjusting properly, you want to make sure that this is secured in the truck. The other issue with these is there's an O-ring on the knob. If it doesn't adjust properly, you want to change the knob and put a new, we've got them in our spare parts, and try that. Most times, by either changing the knob or ensuring this has a good connection, you will get a pass. Okay. The next, the flow meter. There's not a lot to say about the flow meter. Most times they pass fine. There may be a leak at one of the fittings, then you would switch it out. I just wanted to discuss, this is the serial number we did on the unit. It's kind of out of the way, so most times it's easier to remove it from the wall, get the particular information and put it on the sheet, and then reinstall prior to testing. You want to do this with the oxygen set off, and then you turn it on once you've got tight connections. The D-tank regulator. If it fails, you're going to want to pull it out, replace it with another unit, and retest. And you're going to want to rewrite the serial number, and you're going to want to make notes of why the unit failed and on the back of the sheet. Also fill out the paperwork required and hand this in to logistics to get replaced. The other failure that you're going to find is a lot of the time once you turn on the air pressure, it's going to leak here. There's nothing you can do about it. You can make sure that it's the regulator is seated properly on the cylinder. If it is, you're going to have, and it still leaks, you're going to have to take it out of service. Again, fill out the paperwork, replace it with a known good unit. Other than that, there's nothing serviceable. When you are doing the M-tank regulator, got the M-tank regulator, again, if it fails, there's probably two reasons why. The unit has to be 55 psi or over. Typically, if the cylinder is if it's 1500 psi or lower, it's going to most likely fail or get a reading that's not 55 psi. You want to ensure that you've got a full cylinder or almost full cylinder. If it fails on that, then you're going to want to test or switch out the regulator with another regulator and retest. Those are typically the only two reasons that it will fail, unless you've got a leak in the system or one of your fittings are open. Other than that, everything, if you have any issues, just let one of your supervisors know.
So Trevor, you talked about paperwork. Take us through the importance of paperwork again.
Okay, so the paperwork is very important. Most times this paperwork will get audited during the test by somebody, by a supervisor. Typically, I will audit it, all tests. If the paperwork isn't completed, this tells us a story. And usually it's looked at every 3 years during audit. it is very difficult for somebody to explain a story if it's not been written on the piece of paper. So I can't go back 3 years and say, oh, this wasn't filled out, but I know it passed, because I know that's what he typically does. The tester doesn't know us. He doesn't know how we do the test. He doesn't know when we do the test. So this needs to be filled out so anybody coming off the street can read it and know that it's been completed. Checks and boxes without the actual numbers doesn't mean anything to the tester. So he needs to see what the reading was at the time. If you replaced a component or you didn't test a component because it wasn't on the truck or it was a spare unit, it needs to be written in the comments, because if you put an X through it, he's just going to think that you didn't do the test and that we failed. But in true fact, the components may not have been on the truck, and that's why we didn't do it. So we want to write it on the comment section. For example, spare regulator, not on truck, and that is enough information for him to know that you didn't actually test the truck, but you just tested the spare component. It's very important that all of the paperwork is complete, because it needs to be explained 3 years after the fact.